got our next session coming up here. It's the seed panel, seed investing panel, and this is being moderated by Andy Tsao. Andy is with Silicon Valley Bank. He helps them with their global expansion. So everywhere outside of the US, that's where Andy is. He travels a lot. So please welcome to the stage Andy and his panelists.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Andy Tsao. I'm a managing director at Silicon Valley Bank, and this is actually my sixth TiEcon, consecutive TiEcon, and nearly all of them, I believe, are on the entrepreneurship track. In fact, last year I was one of the content chairs, so shout out to Prashant and Steve for all the hard work that goes into this thing. But in any event, Silicon Valley Bank's mission is really to help entrepreneurs and investors succeed worldwide. And I think it's that real synergy with TiE and TiEcon, which is also very much about supporting entrepreneurs that have been really the foundation of our great relationship and partnership over the last 20 years. And SVB is, again, delighted to be a supporter of TiEcon this year. I know those of you in the room are hopefully excited because we have the money in the room now. And we're going to talk a bit about angel and seed investing. So we have a great panel, and we have Miura-Ko, who is co-founder of Floodgate, Kumar, Sripadam, who's active with TiE Angels and TiE Launchpad, and Sunil, Bhargava, who's with Tandem Capital. So if we can simply start, I should remind folks again to, if you want to raise questions, please use the texting mechanism using the A2 as a way to start your question. So if we, panel, if we can start, maybe Ann with you in terms of introducing your funds and the sectors that you're really interested in investing. And Ann, on a personal note, I guess you were at Charles River prior to Floodgate, so maybe you can fill us in a little bit about your inspiration for why you co-founded Floodgate.
Yeah, I would. I think the way I describe myself, I'm an accidental investor. I ended up co-founding Floodgate while I was doing my PhD at Stanford. My PhD was in computer security and math modeling. But I happened to have work experience in venture capital prior to coming back for my PhD, and was asked to teach a lot of entrepreneurship courses. And in the process, met Mike Maples. And we had noted in 2007, 2008, just the drastic drop in amount of capital needed to finance a business and start a business. And in 2008, as you can probably recall, there was a huge financial crisis, and basically a lot of the angels and early stage investors were not making investments anymore. And so we saw this as a huge opportunity for us. And so when Mike came to me and said, I think I've raised a fund and I really want a co-founder, it's not the venture-backed startup that you're thinking of doing, but it's a backed venture startup. What do you think? I sort of jumped at the chance. And so I've been doing investments since 2008. I invested in Lyft in 2010, TaskRabbit in 2009, ModCloth, on the business software and services side, Ayasti, Xamarin. These are all companies I did as the first institutional dollars in. Call it beginner's luck. And since then I've been investing both in the business side as well as on the consumer side. All early stage, all sort of first dollars in.
Kumar, how about you in terms of your view from TiE Angels and TiE Launchpad?
Yes, I started out as an entrepreneur myself, and after some exits, I started into investments and some consulting. I'm very actively involved with TiE Angels and TiE Launchpad. And by the way, TiE Angels is in the top 20 angel groups in the country. We have 28 deals so far. There's no fee to apply. And we also have, many of the TiE Angel companies have actually raised VC funds as well. We've had some good exits. Recently, there was a company called Cloud Volumes, which was bought out by VMware, and many more in the pipeline. And the TiE Launchpad is a fund created by 50 charter members. It's a $5 million fund, and we've had 3 sessions so far, and they call it cohorts. And 11 companies have come in, and many of them also have raised angel funding after they have joined this program. It's TiE Launchpad is basically an accelerator, and it's a 6-month commitment, and you have classes every week, and you're supposed to be here. So that's where we are. The spaces, you want me to talk about which space I'm in, or?
Yeah, what are some of the?
Well, currently I think both from Angels and Launchpad point of view, Launchpad is very much into enterprise, and TiE Angels is a little bit more widespread. I myself am interested in enterprise software, mobile, e-commerce, some consumer stuff, and some infrastructure.
Sunil?
I, like Anne, am also a bit of an accidental investor. I started Tandem Capital after doing 2 startups, much more as sort of a serious hobby. I was going to invest in about 8 companies in 3 years, primarily because I wanted to play an influencer role and not a founder role. My kids were young, and I'd go home being a founder and not have, my mind would be somewhere else, and that wasn't okay. So that's what got me started with Tandem. We have always been, now we are 6 partners. All of us have built 1 or 2 companies. We get involved very early on in the flat part of the hockey stick, and we help the teams find their product market fit. And so you have to be focused. And we've sort of increasingly become more and more focused. In Tandem 1, which was in 2007, we focused on services that could be adopted directly by the user. So these were usually SaaS services that could be directly adopted by the user, and the user was the enterprise user. In Tandem 2, which was in 2000, we were going to do 8 companies, we did 9. 8 of them exited in the first 3 years. We had a 40% return on IRR. So it was very successful, and I really enjoyed it because we saw a lot of young entrepreneurs make their first million. But it wasn't a big money game. We had a small amount of capital. But then the next big change happened where we could actually scalably make money from a lot of users as the smartphones became relatively widely adopted. And so Tandem 2 we focused it further, and we said not only are we going to restrict ourselves to do services that are adopted by users, but now they have to have mobile as a prime focus of their strategy. And so Tandem 2 has been very successful. And then the next big change that happened was that now these smartphones became sort of globally present and widely adopted. So Tandem 3 has another modification, which is that now we focus only on companies that will have a global footprint very, very early in their life cycle. So our focus is on global, mobile, consumer-adopted companies. And this is a $100 million seed fund.
Thank you, Sunil. So certainly from our vantage point at the bank, we are seeing angels being very, very active, particularly with the capital-efficient business models that we have today. And we have a few questions from our audience as well in terms of, give us some details, guys, in terms of what the typical funding rounds look like, in terms of the size of investment that you like to make, what kind of ownership positions do you like? Maybe we could spend a little bit of time on valuation as well, but why don't we start with some basics? Anne, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I think since 2008, things have actually changed pretty drastically. So it used to be in 2008, we were making a lot of $500,000 investments at some valuation between $3 and $5 million. I'm seeing those check sizes now go up to probably more typically the rounds we're seeing is $1.5 million to $3 million, and our check sizes are between $500,000 to about $3 million. And I think the reason why we're seeing an increase is not just because of the dollars coming into the market, but because actually the cost of developing a company, the dirty little secret is it's actually a lot more expensive now. And although we have AWS, we have like a lot of open source software. I used to be able to hire an engineer for $70,000 a year. That's impossible today, right? That's the signing bonus for some of these guys. And then we're seeing, real estate. I actually negotiated the lease for our office in downtown Palo Alto. We started at $3.50. Now it's going for $8 to $9. And so just the fact that fundamental cost has increased drastically, we're seeing people raise a lot more money.
And are you using preferred shares or convertible notes?
Yeah, so we generally do not invest into convertible note rounds. We will only buy equity shares, preferred shares, and we tend to own somewhere between 10 and 20% of a company in that seed stage of investment.
Kumar, same to you.
TiE Angels typically has had a range of 100K all the way to about $1 million, and typical funding has been about 250,000, probably about 5 to 10 members. It's a loose collection of members. If a deal comes through, there's an evaluation process, due diligence, and once it's kind of recommended, the group which is interested would go ahead with the funding. And the process of getting into TiE Angels is you apply to TiE Angels through the website, and the first week of every month we have a screening meeting, and companies are selected for a dinner following that meeting, and the selected companies will present at that dinner, and the members who are interested would respond and would join together to fund that company. And we have seen convertible notes, we have seen straight equity rounds, fairly flexible, and it all depends on the deal the company wants to make, and unless there is a serious objection, things haven't changed much there. And for the launchpad, I'll talk a little later.
At Tandem, we intend to put in a fair amount of money into each of our companies, but we start fairly small. Our 100 million is completely from high net individuals from around the world. So theoretically, if one of our companies takes off, we can always raise a side fund to fund it to whatever level need be. But we also get we get involved very early. Sometimes it's not as early in a company's life, so it might be a year or two into their lives, or it might be right at the beginning. But it's definitely before they've nailed their path to high growth. So if they've nailed their path to high growth, Hans company is the right place to go, or Sequoia, wherever you want to go. We get involved and we become part of their launch team. So we can only do a small set of companies in our focus area. And so when we fund them, the burn rates haven't actually changed all that much. We have a 9,000 square foot place in Burlingame. Most of our companies are welcome to and encouraged to spend time there, because then we are there and we can work very closely with them in the early days. We always start with about a $200,000 to $300,000 note to begin with. But because we get deeply involved, we also take some common stock. So actually, we start with a note which is uncapped and just has a 20% discount. And we have very standard terms. And they've actually not changed in a long time. And we don't fix a valuation at all. So we are, it's an easy deal to do.
On the valuation front, and maybe for the sake of time, maybe I'll just ask one of you to comment. And the question from the audience as well. I guess, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs around valuation negotiation at the early stage? And number two, sort of valuation differences between those companies that are demonstrating traction and those that are more conceptual. Anybody want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take it. I think valuation, it's all set by the market, right? And so my suggestion to all entrepreneurs, and this is what I say to my own entrepreneurs who are going out to raise money, don't set any valuation expectations, because valuation is just a number, right? And what you want to do is actually raise money to support your company. And the moment that the entrepreneur puts out an expectation for what the valuation ought to be, if you're too far off from the investor, you never will get that term sheet. And so the whole point is you want to get a term sheet so you can start the process moving. And it's all about gaining that momentum. And if you get a bidding war, then that's great, right? Then that's when the valuations get super high. But I think it's really hard for the entrepreneur to really control that process.
Let me just add to that. Valuation is not an issue in many of our deals because it's a convertible note, and many investors are comfortable with that. They get a discount, and the entrepreneur is not pressured to figure out what the valuation is. And hopefully at a later event, like when they go to Ann's firm or others, these guys will set the valuation, and then the angel money will convert. And so that problem is solved there.
Okay, for the benefit of the entrepreneurs in the room who are outside of the Bay Area or perhaps from other countries around the world, we take for granted here of so many smart professional angels. But could you give us a sense of some of the things that you're doing that really add value to the company, so-called smart money versus just getting funding in general? Sunil, maybe you can start us off there.
Yeah, I think what you really need in the very early stages I think there are different stages of the company, and in the early stages of the company, what I've found is that a lot of teams come with a certain passion and a certain capability, and it's up to us to recognize those and kind of figure out what the market fit is. And obviously, we don't dictate that to them. We have to do it with them, but that's a discovery process which is quite deeply involved. And then the next phase of that is, okay, so you've got a thesis. How do you actually execute your go-to-market and show that your product market fit has credible traction? And then how do you raise money once you've done that? That's a very complicated process, and it is, you can learn a lot by watching, videos or reading stuff. And most of that is good advice, and it gives you directional sort of thoughts. But every startup is different, and the market evolves very, very quickly. I'll give you an example. There was a company, we've started doing a lot more global companies, and this company was from a small town in Mexico called Leon. And this guy's family had been making shoes forever. And he had applied to us 3 times. And the first time, he wanted to build a community of people that would discuss shoes in Spanish. And for the life of me, I liked the team, it seemed, passionate, but I just couldn't figure out why that was a good business. Third time they applied, it seemed to me that, Facebook was one of the few people that didn't have a payment mechanism, and they would put a buy button in there. And so I thought, hey, maybe if they built a really nice, large community of people who would like a certain product, who would be focused around a certain product on Facebook, maybe there will be a market for that. And today, these guys, so we got them in, they have 29 million people discussing shoes in Spanish on Facebook. Last week, they put a shoe picture on there, got more than 900,000 likes in a day. And so, I think they're well on their way to now building a company that's a unique shoe company which sells high-heel women's shoes. It's but discovering that, we have another company called Cuff, which is changing the way smarts are embedded into jewelry, and we took a very different approach from the iWatch, assuming that, people do not want to wear the same thing every day, but they do want their thing to be smart. And this is another story where generally the normal way to build a company is you build a team, you build a product, you build a business, and you build a brand. We went the other way. We built the brand first. And believe it or not, 2 months after we launched, this team had signed a deal with one of the largest jewelry manufacturers in the world called Richline. And a week later, Warren Buffett called up the founder to welcome her to the fold. And at that time, there was one employee in this company. So, it's a very different world. So getting people that can help you sort of think through how to focus your passion and capabilities is very important.
The geographic area we are in has got an incredible amount of talent, capital, brainpower, infrastructure. And that's just the edge we have. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that that's not available elsewhere, but it's just so so fortunate to have all these things and growing as we speak. I remember a while back there was some emigration out of this area into the Austin, Texas area and stuff like that, but lo and behold, nothing happened. A lot of them just came back because it's so hard to find that right engineer, that right person who's a mentor, that right company where you want to go pilot, that other big firm whom you want to do your co-sales with. All that stuff is available here. And that exactly what makes this area unique. And an organization like TiE, where you have 320 charter members, a TiEcon like this, where you can access so much of people, network, and talent. That's a big plus, and that by itself is the driving force.
Maybe shift gears here, and I'll ask you about if we can talk about accelerators. Certainly very popular today, and how do you view accelerators? Do you invest in companies that have been accelerated? In general, do you think they're doing a good job? Are they worth the equity that they ask for?
I'm a huge fan of accelerators. I think that the more we can actually sort of spread the word of what knowledge the entrepreneur needs in order to get fundraising done, and also to figure out what mistakes have been made in the past and learn from them very quickly. I'm really appreciative of actually the accelerators that are out there that have spread the word. I also love the fact that there's a lot of attention being placed on diversity within these accelerators. And so I think it allows for a different kind of founder to come in and become a new member of the community. And so from a venture perspective, I think it's been a huge boon. We actually have invested in quite a few Y Combinator companies and a few Techstar companies as well. I also am a big fan of the Alchemist Accelerator, which does the enterprise businesses. And so I definitely pay attention to them. I think the major challenge has become valuation coming out of those accelerators. I think one of the things that we also have to pay close attention to is whether or not the accelerators are really just optimizing for the demo day. And so are those metrics ones that actually can last throughout the next 3 to 5 months of growth, or are they just, have they been engineered for success in those 10 weeks? So those are the things that I get concerned about. But in general, I think for the entrepreneurship community, it's been a great thing.
Kumar, what do you want to add from a TiE Launchpad perspective?
TiE Launchpad has a really modest fund. It has $5 million. $50,000 goes to every company who's selected into the program, and in exchange for 4% equity. And 0.25% of that equity goes to a mentor assigned, and you go and pick the mentor. There are 320 charter members in the roster, and you see who fits the best and who can help you out. And hopefully you hit it out and you work with him or her. And the uniqueness of an accelerator like TiE Launchpad is that you have minds, money, marketing. You have structured access to all these members, and you have great mentorship. And you have weekly meetings. Everything happens on a regular basis. You have space actually to even host your company and get it to a stage where you can get angel funding or the next level funding. Incidentally, the 11 companies which went through the Launchpad program have raised money for their angel round through TiE Angels and other entities. So that's a good success story. By the way, the next batch is starting in August, so feel free to apply. Go onto the website. The Launchpad booth is also on the floor. I think booth number 116.
Well, with time running down and lots of eager entrepreneurs in the room, maybe I'll ask each of you, starting with you, Sunil, about what's the best way to reach you guys to discuss investment? And then as you look at potential investment, what is the single most biggest factor that you're looking at that'll sway you either way in terms of investment, team, product, et cetera?
Yeah, so the best way to reach out to us is to just fill out the application on our website, tandemcapital.com. We don't have a class, but we look at all applications that come in. They may get looked at earlier, but they definitely get looked at within 3 months. And then, what was the other part of the question?
Just in terms of what criteria do you look at?
Yeah, the criteria. So, clearly team is the most important criteria for us. When we are investing, it's before you've got that traction or found the knee of the curve. So there's very little for us to look at in perspective of, to say, hey, this is going to be a huge business. And the second thing is space. We look at space and we say, is this something that we believe has a rising tide? And do we think we can add value in this space? And the third thing, which is probably, we want some kind of a credible go-to-market. It doesn't have to be the right one, but we want to be able to, we want to have you at least present one.
I would rate the
Kumar,
product.
Sorry, can I interrupt you just a second? Can you just weave into your answer also from the audience? Do you also consider age and sex of the founder? Just as you answer, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a good one. Okay, but so let's look at it from the three things I would look at, or we look at. Product needs to be as good as the team. I mean, I can have great teams if they turn out a product which is not what you want it to be, or it's not saleable. It really doesn't matter how genius of the team that is. And closely followed by a market, I want to make sure we do have an exit. After all this is for some economic success for both, and in that order. And as far as the other question, I really don't think it matters. And we have seen college kids come out with master's degrees, all the way to people who have been serial entrepreneurs and who are 60 plus coming into these programs. So we're okay all across. There's male, female, or otherwise.
So I'll answer the last question first. So if you look at our portfolio, we've invested in male, female. I think one of my founders is over 70 years old, and we have ones who can't drink legally, and so it runs the gamut for us. As far as what we're looking for, my partner describes this best. He says we're looking for thunder lizards, and there are only 10 to 15 companies in any given year, no matter what the financial climate is like, that really exits at over $1 billion. And this is purely in the IT tech sector. And if you look at that, what we're looking for is one of those top 10 businesses in any given year. And currently, there's something like 10 to 30,000 new companies formed in any given year in the US. So that means we're looking for a very, very small number of companies within the masses of businesses we're looking at. What is a thunder lizard? It's hatched from radioactive atomic eggs. They swim across the Pacific Ocean, inspired by Godzilla. Emerges in Tokyo Harbor or San Francisco Bay with an attitude, proceeds to smash buildings and eat trains and destroy cars. It's this imagery of the audacity of that founder to completely come in and disrupt. And that's what we're really looking for. That could be found in lots of different types of people. We think in lots of different types of industries. There are sort of fits between industry and partner, right? So there are certain things that I just, for some reason, can't get passionate about. Ad tech is one of those things. Financial services is another. I know there are huge businesses in these areas, but it's just not a personal passion of mine. An area that I've been diving deep into is big data, data science, and math modeling. That tied to also computer security, obviously ties back to my PhD. Those are areas that I'm personally looking at quite a bit.
Any advice on how to get to you to pitch an idea?
Yeah, so we're best when so I only make 3 investments a year. And so for most of the filters that we use is through someone that we know, right? And I think a lot of VCs will say this, get to someone that we know and then get connected to us. That's probably the way that you get through our filters most quickly. We do also have an email that we do check. It's businessplans@floodgate.com.
Okay, well, I think we are out of time, so please join me in thanking the panelists.